right? I'm directing this thing, God said. So I took the job at MGM. 6 months into being in the company, they were being sold. I said, Lord, what are you doing? How are you going to bring it to a company and all of a sudden they're on the selling block, right? And everybody's going to lose their job and get paid out of their contracts. We thought the company was going to go to Time Warner, but at the last moment, Sony swooped in with a bunch of other investors and bought the company. Sony is a company that funds Will Smith's production company, right? So Will has made most of his movies with Sony, from Bad Boys to Men in Black, to Hitch. So I said, okay, so if Will is at Sony, maybe there's a way I can get to Sony. So I started praying on that. And Will has done a fundraiser for Barack Obama's second Senate campaign. I ended up going to the Senate campaign fundraiser. It's in Beverly Hills. It's a beautiful summer night. And here comes Senator Barack Obama walking through the party. I walk right past the brother. I'm not trying to meet him, okay? I don't get a picture. I don't get an autograph. I'm looking for the heads of Sony, all right? Where are the presidents of Sony, okay? Never mind that he's about to be the first African-American president of the United States. Maybe one day I'll get that picture, okay? I ended up meeting the heads of Sony. We had a fantastic, moment. They gave me 5 minutes, and I said, okay, God, I hope you'll do something. In the winter, January of 2005, the heads of Sony and the heads of MGM had a meeting. After that meeting, one of my bosses called me into her office. She sits me down. She says, DeVon, I have a message for you from the chairman of Sony. She said, do not look for a job. You have one when the deal closes. See, in the natural, the last one hired, first fired, but when you allow God to direct your story is not subject to man's natural approach. Come on, somebody. I was one of 2 people in the department to make the transition to Sony. The year that I get to Sony, not only do I get put back in relationship with Will and his company. Now check this out. I left the company. I was the intern and assistant. And now, when I get to Sony, I become the executive that oversees their account and oversees most of the movies that they make. The first movie we did together was Pursuit of Happiness. God said, I will make you the head, not the tail. If you would just trust me and you would just believe what I'm doing in your story, people thought I was committing career suicide. You don't quit the biggest movie star in the world. I say, hold on, I serve God. I serve the biggest God in the world, so I'm going to trust Him over what conventional wisdom may say. That same year, the chairman is making a production deal with Bishop T.D. Jakes. The first meeting that Bishop Jakes has at Sony, the chairman asked me to sit in. Bishop Jakes and his team walk into the meeting. His team sits on the left-hand side. I'm sitting on a love seat, and Bishop Jakes comes and sits right next to me. Now, I was literally about to lose my mind. Because here I was, as a kid growing up, being a big fan of his word. The last time I saw him, he was a dot on the stage. The distance between us was like being worlds apart. And here I am in Hollywood going after God, and people said, no, don't do it. But God puts me in connection with one of the most influential people of faith in the world. I didn't have to go after him. He came into my story. Who am I talking to? See, you've been praying for a relationship, and you've been praying. God says, listen, I'm getting ready to bring somebody to you that you have been trying to get to. God says, stop trying. Keep getting close to me and watch what I do. We ended up starting to make films. We made Not Easily Broken. It was the first film that we did. And when we were looking for another film to do, I'll never forget this. It's after I made My Kid. I called my buddy. Remember I told you my buddy got fired? Well, when he got let go, he came up with a movie idea about a wedding on Martha's Vineyard where an upper-class family marries a working-class family. And he called that idea Jumping the Broom. I called him up. By this time, he was working with Tracy Edmonds, my former boss. And I said, hey, man, do you have a script? I need to make a movie with Bishop. And he says, yeah, I have this movie called Jumping the Broom. I said, okay. He said, Jumping the Broom. Read the script. I said, okay, I think we can make this. We ended up going into production on the movie. And one of the actresses in the film came in to read for the film. Hallelujah. Sorry, Terry Curtis, this is going on a tangent. I'm going to come back. Don't worry. I'm going to come back to the script, all right? This is all about how faith works, amen? And God is directing our story even if we don't think He is. So, the This young lady by the name of Megan Good, her manager calls me and says, DeVon, Megan has been rehearsing for the bride part. Now, by this time, we already cast Paula Patton. Anybody see something in the room? So I said, look, we've already cast Paula as the bride. I don't want her to come in and read for this part when we know she's not going to get it.